Mr. Prayer Rikhotso was born and bred in Mochipisi village. I hope I'm saying that correctly, Prayer. In
That's correct, sir.
Malamulele.
Malamulele.
Yes, and that is in the Limpopo province of South Africa. He was trained as a financial economist from the universities of Cape Town and Johannesburg,
That's
South
right,
Africa. Prayer is now a senior investment banker that is a credit risk specialist at Absa Group Limited. He is currently reading for his master's degree in financial economics at the University of Johannesburg. Prayer, welcome, my brother. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence.
No, thank you very much, sir, for having me here. It's a great honor, a great privilege. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man. Okay, so how would you define vision casting or goal setting in a pandemic context?
Okay, thanks for that's a very tough question, but we're here sitting here in this session today just to break it down. And just to begin with, I'll start by sharing three or four thoughts that could perhaps hopefully challenge the thought of the viewers in this community. And just use that to paint as a canvas upon which the rest of the conversation is going to be based. And I'll take the first point from the book, from the book by Bishop T.D. Jakes in his books, where a book that says T.D. Jakes talks to men. He says everything that is of value and matters in life has to be built, be it a business, a family, marriage, or a relationship. It has to be built. And he goes on to say that you have to build a wedding into a marriage. You have to build a house into a home. You have to build a friendship into a relationship. And what we realize from here is that building is a process and requires purposeful and considered effort to transform the raw inputs into the final finished product that one envisions. So that said, what becomes clear is that successful builders are good planners or vision casters. And this has to be true about us if we are to be this successful in this generation. And second point that I want to talk to is as borrowed from Jim Collins' book, and when he say in his book titled From Good to Great. Jim Collins advises us that when you want to embark on a journey with a bus, you must first determine what your desired destination is and identify what and who you will need when you get there to the destination. Only then you can start thinking of embarking on a journey. But before you do so, you've got to onboard all of the resources that you are going to need at your destination, be it from all types of resources, including human resources. Most importantly, you've got to assign them the right rows and seats in your bus before you start. It simply says that you cannot put a driver at the back seat. That is just a formula that will not work. But this analogy itself tells us about the importance of planning ahead before one embarks on any activity of substance. And the third point I want to borrow from Jesus in the book of Luke 14, verse 28, who admonishes his disciples that who amongst you is intending to build a tower does not first sit down and estimate the cost of finishing the project as to ascertain as to whether he has enough money to complete the project or not. It goes on to say, if you lay down a foundation and are not able to finish it, everyone who sees it will mock you and ridicule you. And that's a situation nobody wants.
Wow.
This verse just basically tells us that we've got to be intentional. We've got to be intentional in planning whatever we want to do. In other words, vision casting is the absolute nucleus of the success in this kind of work that we embark on doing. It is definitely unwise to bank on microwave success if you want to build something that will last for a lifetime.
True.
And lastly, King Solomon in the book of Proverbs 13:22, he says to us, a good man leaves a good inheritance for his children and his children's children. But the wealth of a sinner is stored up for the righteous. This verse just basically tells us that a good man thinks and plans for multiple generations. He does not just live for the moment, neither does he, but he prepares for the future of his children and his children's children. And that's the type of legacy one ought to be making. And what is clear from there is that it's impossible to leave good inheritance unless one is intentional about the plans and the visions to achieve that particular desired future. And that is what becomes clear, that if we want to be successful, we want to leave a good legacy, good inheritance for the upcoming generations. Vision casting is non-negotiable, and it must take conscious and purposeful investment in order for us to win, be it during the time of pandemic or not. And with that just said, this particular conversation for today is mainly relevant for those who are intending to build to last. Who are planning for the generations that transcend them. And if you are not, if you are one who is just looking to live for the moment, perhaps you can pause and close this recording for the rest of the session.
Wow. Look, I really love that prayer. And you touched on a few things that are very critical to obviously what brings us together in this community. And that is, you spoke on passion. The vision bearer must have passion. You also spoke about, I like the analogy you make on James Collins' book, where you say the driver need not be at the back. So you cannot lead from the back if you are a vision bearer. That's amazing. And the other thing that you touched on as well, which was obviously on the scriptures, is the fact that you need not build to see results tomorrow. There is no get quick results kind of a scheme when it comes to vision casting. So I think that's really amazing. You are touching on very important and critical points there. Given the major challenges, right, so that we faced in 2020, and how the pandemic affected all of us, do you recommend then that we craft big, hairy, audacious goals, as recommended by James and Jerry in their book, Built to Last? Or should we simply be conservative and measured in our vision crafting?
You're talking about building to last, right? So you would know that right now we're living in a time of pandemic. This has just caused massive disruption in the fabric of our society. What we have always known to be normal has suddenly become somewhat a criminal offense. An example, just walking around, taking a walk just to get fresh air is now a criminal offense if you don't have a mask on. So
I tell you,
norm is not there any longer. So that just talks to the changes that come with time, and how then do we navigate all these changes. It then becomes critical that you've got to, because pandemics and these social disruptions come and go. It's very important that these pandemics do not go with us. They do not go with your vision. They do not go with your goals.
Yeah.
But you've got to be making plans and cast a vision that will transcend the immediate setbacks of the current circumstances that we're facing at the present moment. So to your question, should we be conservative or should we be audacious? I would definitely say, look, the pandemic is just a temporary disruption that is going to come through. but that should not stop us from dreaming big and being audacious about the dreams we want and the kind of future we want to create as time goes. So I would definitely say that on the other side of the pandemic, while we all often just see the difficult side of it, I always see that there's an upside in this, that the pandemic itself gives us an opportunity to take a step back, sit down, to stop whatever we're doing, review everything, and then recharge, and then be able to learn the lessons from what has happened and be able to restart with little or no pressure to be able to be at an advanced stage. So at this point of restarting and refreshing our strategy for the journey called life, this is the time where we've got to put down very, very audacious goals and targets. Wow. And if you look at history itself, look at all the crises that have happened, be it the health crisis that has happened in history, or be it the financial crisis that we've seen. All the multi-billionaires have been built out of a crisis moment. It is this curious moment that we should keep our eyes open wide and be at a point where we ensure that we are ready to take advantage of the opportunities that actually arise. And because this is where now the multiple assets that become available for sale at virtually no price. And if you have one vision bearer who knows the type of future that they want to build, you know that you ensure that you keep your seeds ready for use as and when the environment is ready for that. And this is typically where now we need to ensure that our goals are very audacious and chase them at whatever cost there is. We have nothing to lose.
Wow, look, that's something that's very profound. And I must say, I've studied the last 10 previous pandemics. And to echo what you are saying, when I look at the trends, I've studied like a year after the pandemic has hit. And what I've realized that in all of them, except for, the prolonged one in the case of HIV and AIDS, but a year after that pandemic, what you will then see is you see the economy having moved back to previous positions, or even better. The climate is much better. So when you are saying let us go there and craft big, hairy, audacious goals, I think that's something really amazing. Thank you so much. And pandemics call for what is known as wartime leaders who are not going to be timid, leaders who are going to say, look, we're going forward and this is what we are doing, pandemic or not. So thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. I think.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. So now let's discuss steps, right? So here I am. I want to craft my vision. What are the key steps that you would advise we take? So take us step by step. What key steps would you advise we take when crafting our vision for the year?
So thanks for that question. And I would like to draw the attention to the analogy and the framework that has been laid out by Jim Collins in the book From Good to Great. I think it lays out a really good framework to think about.
Yes.
Think of setting goals just like when you decide to go shopping. So it is very critical that at the very beginning, you identify exactly where you are going, what your destination is going to be. You identify what basically just defines what looks like, what defines that particular end goal is going to be.
Yep.
And you must have that clarity of thought in terms of what that looks like and what it does not look like. This can help us this will definitely help us to overcome the natural human setback that we often experience, that you find that there's so many of us out there who know what we do not want.
Sure.
And we can list all types of things that we do not want. But if you ask just for one thing that you want, it's very difficult to pen it down. So, and that is very critical when you think of a vision casting goal setting. Be clear and intentional about the end result that you want to achieve.
Wow.
Once you are there, you have that clarity of thought and you've got a good picture of how that looks like. Now identify the type of resources you are going to need to be able to achieve that. Identify the people that you need around you to make that a success, and identify the people you do not need around you to make that a success. You know, it's very key that we need to balance this. We need to balance that we have people that, you know, there are certain people and certain skills that are useful for a particular goal, and the same people might not necessarily be useful for all types of goals and visions that we may have in life. So it's very key that for each type of goal, where you have a specific end goal, I identify who needs to be at the forefront of it, and who, quite frankly, who needs to be at the back seat of it. Because someone who is at the back seat of goal A today might just need to be in the middle seat or in the front seat of the next goal.
Wow.
So it's very key that we strike the balance between all of these, and also avoid a trap of, of working in a silo setting where just because someone with a certain skill is not a much needed skill in this part of the goal, in this part of the milestone in the vision itself, then you immediately cast them out of your journey. And this is particularly a challenge that we all people generally suffer from, and a mistake that we always make. But if we are very clear, and communicate with sufficient clarity with all the people, coming back to Jim Collins, we in a bus, we're setting forth for a journey.
Yep. And
then there is luggage that has been packed on the luggage compartment of the bus. I need to get a driver. I need to get the passengers in. I need to get the guys who are going to help me offload the luggage. I need the guys who are going to make sure that the people in the bus are fed. So all these types of people, they become useful at a different stage in the journey. Amazing. Some in the beginning, some throughout the journey, some only at the end. So it's very, very critical to identify the usefulness of all these resources and deploy them appropriately as they are required. In that way actually ensure that we achieve great success in whatever the goal that we are actually intending to do. So just without going to the details of each and every type of a goal, that type of framework gives us a clear idea of how we need to go about setting a goal. And I'll just recap that. One is identify exactly what the end goal is going to be. How does it look like? Two, put together a list of, more like a checklist of sort, to be able, how does the success or achievement of that goal looks like, so that when you get there, you know that you have arrived. So that, and this helps us to overcome the natural human disorder of assuming that our happiness lies at the next destination. My fulfillment lies in the next job that I get. My financial freedom lies in the next pay raise I get. Only to find that when you get there, you have that pay, you're only gonna be happy for a month or 2, 3 months down the line. You're gonna need much more, and it becomes this vicious cycle that perpetuates ungratefulness in us as human beings, precisely because we keep shifting the goalpost and losing sight of where we are going. And as a result, we don't see how far we have come to actually acknowledge and appreciate the grace that has been with us and taken us to this far. And as a result, we end up even not appreciating the people who have been part of the journey with us, because we can't see, we don't have a way to track back where we come from and how much progress we have made. We end up not celebrating the successes that we have made, but we are too focused on the setbacks that basically have come through and disrupted us. But ultimately, when you have this kind of checklist that tells you how does a success looks like, it becomes very easy. You come to a pandemic setting like this, you're like, okay, hold on, where are we now? Where were we when we started? Then from there you start. There has been so much progress, yet there's still much more that needs to be done, and then that helps us to draw strength and courage from the past successes and lessons from the past setbacks that we have experienced. In this kind of way, when we set a goal or cast a vision with this executional awareness, it helps us to stay on top of the game, and ensures that we actually do not drop the ball unnecessarily and get discouraged when things get difficult, and such as in a time like this where everything we've known to be normal has suddenly become abnormal any longer, and we need to adjust to a complete new set of lifestyle. And that talks to the last point I want to highlight, is part of the steps, is that the one of the critical steps in casting this vision, setting this goal, you've got to be flexible. You've got to build in some element of flexibility in how you execute, particularly not flexibility in always changing the goalpost or the target that you need to reach. Sometimes the journey, the route you thought will help you get there, as you embark on the journey, you find that there's an accident along the way and you did not know about it. But as soon as you pick up that signals, or you hear that there is an accident along the way and that road has been closed temporarily, you immediately make a U-turn and use an alternative route that will still get you to the destination, but saving the time that it would have costed you for you to stick on the route that was not going to be the best route for you to achieve the goal itself. So you've got to build in that element of flexibility in how we execute the plans and the goals and the visions that we have set forward. And in that way, we wrap all of this together. And Jim Collins terms, we will arrive at a destination with all the energy all the energy in the tank that we are going to require when we get to the destination, to be able to make the good out of the good plan, to make the good out of the opportunity that arises at the destination, and still be able to cherish the experience of the journey itself to come in there, because ultimately life on its own is a journey. It's a journey. It's not you achieve one goal right now. That's not the end of it. Nelson Mandela once said to us, "It's only when you climb one when you climb one hill and get to the top, only then you realize that more hills to climb." And so is the case with life and the goals and the visions that we have. We achieve the vision to a certain level. Now, when we arrive there, you even see a much wider scope to expand and grow that vision. and build an empire that will last a lifetime for the generations to come.
How much time do we need to take when we are now planning our way ahead?
Cool. That's a very important. That's a very important question as we talk about planning itself, and I will borrow also from the words of King Solomon. Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 10. King Solomon admonished his people and said, "If the axe is dull and its edges are not sharpened, more strength is required, but wisdom is profitable to give good success."
Amazing. Wow.
So,
quite a
the
profound.
axe is dull and its edges are not sharpened.
Yeah.
You use more strength.
Yeah.
And to further elaborate this point, one of the former U.S. presidents, Abraham Lincoln, he said, "If you give me 6 hours to cut down a tree, I'll spend the first 4 sharpening the axe."
Wow.
What all this tells us is that planning is very, very critical, and it's the absolute nucleus of success in every type of project or endeavor that we get into. It is absolutely mandatory and not negotiable if we want to be successful in it. Otherwise, if we do not plan, we are going to exert and use more strength than we actually needed to. So, this is where now, if you use more strength, you very, very quickly run out of mileage to deliver.
Yeah.
But if you plan and execute according to the plan, in the planning phase, you would have identified the type of preparations that need to come together in order for you to ensure that your execution is seamless and fault-free. And this point is what is basically highlighted in the verse I quoted, that if the axe is dull, if the axe is dull, that is just, I see that as that's just a statement of fact, as a condition as is, right? And the axe being dull is not a problem. It's not a problem, because the verse says, if the axe is dull and its edges are not sharpened, so there's an additional part that is required there, the sharpening of the edges. If we choose not to sharpen the edges, we are going to use more strength. In other words, the converse of that is, if the axe is dull and its edges are sharpened, we're going to know less strength is going to be required.
Yeah.
And to sharpen the edges, that is where wisdom comes in, becomes more profitable. So this is very key. The planning is very key to the success of any activity, any project, any endeavor we get to in life. So that said, we've got to, and this will depend from project to project, goal to goal, in terms of the scope, the requirements for that. But what is very key, that the key take-home message here is that before we start, we've got to devote as much time as we can to ensure that the planning is proper and is well coordinated, and then spend and dedicate a certain amount of time to the execution of that. Because once we get into the execution phase and we have planned for multiple scenarios, and we see that the outcome in one area is not going the way we envision, we can very easily deploy a tactical switch in the strategy, how we plan to proceed with the journey itself or with the project itself, without coming to a complete halt where we do not know what needs to be done. And most importantly, the planning itself, the important part of planning includes how we bounce back and learn from the past failures and implement the lessons from in our future activities and future goals that we undertake to do.
Wow. No, I like that prayer, because you are saying our planning must be all encompassing. It must look at our previous setbacks and how we can then bounce back from those so that we can aim higher. And I mean, it is said that a minute spent in planning saves you 10 minutes in execution. So I guess maybe if your goal is 100%, you ought to spend at least 10% of that amount of time sharpening that saw, you know, so that's amazing. Okay, so in his book, Your Best Year Ever, Michael Hyatt suggests we measure our progress in 10 areas of our lives, right? So he mentions mental health, physical health, spirituality. He also mentions intellectual life, marriage and partnerships, personal life, friends, jobs, and personal finances. Do you agree with this?
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. And as I indicated in my opening line, these points are also alluded to in the script that I quoted earlier from Bishop T.D. Jakes.
Yeah.
And why I agree with this is that I wholeheartedly believe that a successful life is one that is making good progress in all aspects of life, not just in one.
Yeah.
In order to complete the picture of to give you a holistic picture of progress as a human being, as and to get that success from a holistic standpoint. And if you take a holistic view, there is no denying that if you have financial success, but you are not in good health, there is an absolute imbalance there. It's going to be very difficult to enjoy the most, to enjoy that success that you have in one area. Or you can have success in one. You can have success in your career, but your family is dysfunctional. That does a lot to destabilize you, and very soon it's only a matter of time before you lose everything that you've got. So it is very, very critical that this success, it cuts across and these goals that we have cuts across all these various aspects of life that ultimately give us a view of who is prayer at the end of the day. Right? And it has to bring in all of these things. And because we have already indicated that for us to be successful in casting our visions, we've got to be very intentional about the type of goals we need to achieve, and whichever, and when we set out for a journey, we've got to be clear of the destination. It very much fits in well with what the book says, that have the specific goals in different aspects of life, meaning that you got to be clear about what you want for each area of life. In your finances, what do you want to achieve? In your family, what do you want to achieve? In your health, what do you want to achieve? So, and be intentional and be decisive about those specific targets that you need to that you hope to attain, and put in the effort and the work to get it done. I absolutely think it's the kind of the perfect framework to kind of think of how you need to be casting your vision that spreads across various aspects of life. And the last point to make is it's a quote. It's a quote that the author, I don't know, but they say, if you want to plan for a year, just plant rice. And if you want to plan for 10 years, plant trees.
Wow.
But if you want to plan for 100 years, educate children.
Sure.
Close quote.
That's amazing.
What this tells us is that in all of this that we are doing, it depends on the timelines when you want to achieve timeline when you want to achieve a certain goal, right? Is it different? I mean, it's clear even from the various aspects that we need to consider that are defined in the book, that you've got to align each plan to the maturity profile or to the maturity profile of each aspect of each goal, right? And yeah, there are goals that are got to be planned, for a year, some for multiple years. And today we're having a conversation about building to last. And that automatically puts us in the last gear where we've got to be planning for 100 years. And that includes educating children, leaving a good inheritance for them. Educating children is not just limited to teaching them and telling them what to do. Because oftentimes we realize that children do as we do, not as we say. So
that's true.
And one of the best ways to actually entrench that lesson, to educate them, is to show them results that talk to what we are telling them. And this is the opportunity that you and I have today to say that for the upcoming generation, there's a day in 2021 we sat down and had a discussion around how you plan for how you build something that will last. And we have indeed done so. Here are the results. The baton is now moving on to you. Take the legacy forward, expand the vision, grow, build an empire that will last a lifetime. And I think that is ultimately the responsibility that is facing all of us here today. And I think it would be very, very critical that we look at this from a holistic standpoint in order for us to be able to achieve what we ought to be achieving.
Sure. No, look, I mean, what you are saying really, it sort of reminds me of what is called SMART goals, right? So specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. So, I mean, when you are saying that we need to also look into these different areas, obviously these different areas will not necessarily fit the same time frame. One might be a week, one might be a month, one might be a year, one might be 10 years, 100 years, as you have said. So do you think then we should, when we are doing this kind of planning, should we then take a page, divide it into 10 sections, write each goal under each area? Or do we then say, okay, you know what? When it comes to, for example, my health, on a scale of 0 to 10, in fact, that's what Michael Hyatt suggests, on a scale of 0 to 10, maybe I'm a 2. I need to improve to at least a 4 by this time, or by the next time I need to have improved to 6. Are these things that we should be, actively doing? And what actionable steps basically do we take in such a planning phase?
Yeah, cool. That's a critical question that talks to the core of why we're having this discussion. And you are absolutely spot on. These different areas or spheres of life have different time frames when we plan for a certain goal. They will not be the same across. So it's very, very critical to apply a differentiated approach for each specific area of life, right? And I think and just to that point, there is also a saying that he who does not know history is doomed to repeat its mistakes. What this tells us is that if we want to embark on a journey right now, you want to set a goal right now, it's very, very critical that we do the research and understand exactly what has happened before, what has gotten us to where we are today. Be it a good situation or a not so good one, there has been a set of events that have happened. And it's very, very critical when we are trying to work our way out of that situation. It's very critical to understand how we got there in the first place, so that in our attempt to try and get out, we do not do more of the same that has been done to get us where we are right now. So what that means is that, and this talks to your point, and I'm full agreement, that when we set a goal, we first got to sit down and assess, survey the environment, the state of the situation as it is right now. Understand what has caused the situation to be the way it is. Once you have understand the various factors that have interacted together to actually result in the situation that we are in, then decisively and purposefully work and make massive investments and sacrifices that will ensure that we, after a certain time period, we are able to overcome that situation or get out of it, or we are able to build a new normal out of it, right? So, and to be practical, I always find it quite a lot easier to, I always find it a lot easier to sit down and say, look, in my health, look, you know what, there's just been, the pandemic has been with us for some time right now, and with lockdown more than 300 days, you see I'm gaining quite a lot of weight. That's having a lot of impact in my health as well. I don't intend to go on this way, right? In that, if you take that as an example, just to highlight the practical aspects of this, is to say that when we want to craft a goal that talks to a better standard, a better health condition, right? It has to start from now for me to now say, look, it was the pandemic situation that I can't control, right? But there are factors that I can control in that point. So I leave coronavirus as it's doing its own thing, because that's quite frankly beyond my control. But in the best interest of my health, I have absolute control on what I consume and what I do not consume. And number two, what do I do with what I have consumed after consuming it? So that's very key. So we cannot. So it means that when we are trying to work our way back into shedding a few kilos, it's very critical that we need to now start looking at the diet.
Yeah.
The kind of groceries we buy in the house. How often and when do we actually consume all these kind of food items, right? And because consumption of food is critical to maintain life, we cannot stop that completely. But there are additional measures that we have to to take in order for us to get to that point. You need to be able to exercise if you pick up some weight, right? And exercise is very difficult, but it takes concerted effort to actually achieve that.
Yeah.
And that's precisely the direction we ought to be going. That if we ate during the pandemic and did not exercise, it will be quite unthinkable to believe that now we can just eat whatever we can eat without exercising. It's really not going to get us there. If it gets us there, it's probably not going to be the best way, the best way for us to be planning for things, because we're leaving everything to fate to happen that way. So it's very critical that assess where you are at in each area of life, identify what has gone wrong, also identify what has gone right, and leverage of the lessons from the failures of the past, and scale up on the actions and the activities that have brought up good success. In that way, it will help us to actually achieve a lot more, even during this time of the pandemic as we are.
Wow. Look, I totally agree with you. And yeah, like you are saying, obviously look at where you are. In fact, look at where you were, where you are, and where you want to go, to craft that vision, set obviously those smart goals, and don't forget to also rank yourself, and see where how much you have achieved in each category. So I like that. How regularly should one check to see if they are on track with their plans, particularly for the year? Because you find that, it's now September and I go back to my diary and I'm like, oh no, what happened now? I haven't achieved any of these goals, or in March, you even forget that you had these goals that you wanted to achieve for the year. So how regularly should one check?
So the short answer to that is as regular as frequently as you can.
Amazing.
Yeah, as frequently as you can, and this is so because each area of life, as we spoke about it, has different time frame for a certain goal to be achieved, right? So you've got to look at, say for example, if you are looking at a multi-generational plan, right? That will be the strategic goal, strategic intent to achieve. But at least at absolute minimum, at the end of every, annually or semi-annually, take a step back and see how much progress am I making in that multi-generational strategy that I want to achieve, right? So that's one. Or if you have a goal that is, it's a target that is for a year, right? Depending on which area of life you're looking at it. Say it's in your finances, right? You have an annual target to save up certain amount of money or to get out of debt, right? That is plan for that. Yes, depending on the term and on the time frames, on the term to maturity of your existing obligations. If they are annual in nature, sure, you plan, you make those targets, but the necessary, and then monitor at least quarterly or monthly. Just to take a moment to take a step back and say, okay, cool. Oh, yeah, this is where we need to get to. So many months have gone by. We have moved so far, or we have not moved an inch at all. What does this mean? What is going wrong? And what must be changed? And now, as part of the observations that you see from that checkup exercise, you now implement daily, because success itself must not make a mistake about it. It's not coincidence. It's a result of concerted effort, and sacrifices that one has to make, and let go of temporary comfort for a long-term benefit. There are times where we've got to make those kind of calls, and as a matter of fact, all the people who have been successful throughout life, they will tell you, all has come at massive sacrifices that I've had to make. And that has to be true about us, that sometimes is a change of behavior that we got to implement on a daily basis, difficult as it is. We have a financial target. We've got to tighten we got to tighten the tap on our spending. We cannot spend as and when we wish because we have a goal to attain.
Right? Yeah.
So
no, I like
unless
that.
we, unless we, and then the nice part about this is that if we say that, you know what, we can just live life loosely, ultimately the result will show that the goal will not be attained and we'll have no one else to blame except ourselves. So that just tells us that whether we succeed or fail in life, it's really entirely up to us more than anything. You see, I always give an analogy. I was talking to one gentleman the past few days. You know, on the point of gratitude and appreciating the grace of God during this time. Who ended up then said, look, you know what, all of these things, it's is the work of the grace. And then he corrected me. He pointed out something. He corrected me in a way that I didn't actually think of it that way. That look, oftentimes there are as many people out there who have done what you have done, or we had the same opportunity to do what you have done, and they didn't, but you did something, and the results changed. And then that ultimately cannot be attributed to coincidence. It is not coincidence. It is the law of nature says that actions have consequences. You plant a seed today, sooner or later there are going to be results. And I rounded up the conversation in this way, that if you think of it, this is more like an analogy where you have a farmer, right? A farmer who has a farm is used to planting and doing what farmers do, right? And they're largely dependent on rain for the crop to grow healthily, right? There are other measures that you can take, to manage that and also in the event where rain doesn't come through. You can have the irrigation system, but the results are not the same as when there is rain.
Yes.
So now I said to him, you know what, this situation, this goal setting scenario, it's more like you've got to think of ourselves as farmers, right? We are heavily dependent on the grace of God for us to have rain, in order for us to get great success. But if you are a farmer, and you do not plant in your seed, you do not plant any seed in your farm, and it doesn't rain, well, it just did not rain. We can always make an excuse. But if you plant, if you're right. So, but if you also are a farmer, you plant a seed, right? And it doesn't rain, your crops might die, right?
Yes.
But if it rains, you might get the results out of it. Now you say, in that type of scenario, we've got to think of ourselves with the little that we have to be able to control and be able to do from time to time. We've got to be the type of farmer whom, when rain or no rain, is busy going to the phrase, is busy walking around in the farm, planting the seed, such that when it rains, the rain will find the seed in the ground and nourish that seed.
Wow.
As opposed to a farmer who does not plant, because if you do not plant, only weed is going to grow in your farm.
Yes.
And you will have no one to blame. The farm still remains yours, but you chose not to build, be it because of the conditions or for whatever reasons you had. But the fact that you did not build meant that the outcome that you see there is your responsibility. So you cannot blame the rain all the time. The rain is there to supplement and scale up the results that we have worked towards, that we have planned to get. Because it can rain, if we are not planting the seed, we are not going to get any results.
That's true. Look, you touch on some mistakes that people make when you are making this analogy of a farmer. 5 mistakes that people make when crafting a vision. What can you say those mistakes are?
So, yeah, so I think it's in the main, as you said, I've already alluded to many of those, right? And I would just because again there will also be vary from different from goal to goal depending on what it entails.
I
But in
see.
general, what you pick up is that we tend to make a plan. So let's just take now in the beginning of the year, it's January, right? We draft New Year's resolutions. Be it we write it down in a book somewhere, we close that book and forget about it. Come December, we open it. Some of us open it for the first time since the last time.
Yeah.
You know, so that's one big mistake. I think many of us are actually guilty of at some stage. We have actually done that. So, and that is one thing that that is not going to help us a lot, because sometimes in some instances you will you will craft a very aspirational goal, and by all means, all these visions, all these goals, in my view, I believe they have to be aspirational for them to mean something. Because
Yeah.
if they are not scary enough, they don't give you that edge to be on your toes to want to work hard enough.
That's true.
Because if it's something that is comfortable for you to get, you can relax and say, you know what, I got a hang of this. I can take care of this. And that does not help you to get to the next level of achievement. So that for me says, you want that goal, you want to set a goal, let it be an aspirational goal that even many people can tell you this is impossible for you to do. And then you say to yourself, because it's not only does it look impossible to me, it looks impossible to everybody else. And for that reason, I am going to do everything absolutely possible in my power to do my part to make sure it happens. And then I do my best and let God do the rest. So I think in the main, the biggest challenge, and one of the among the, I've talked about 2 or 3 now. Fourth one would be that we put down a goal, but we don't follow up on it. We don't take the necessary steps to actually achieve it. We don't make all the necessary adjustments in our lifestyles to be able to achieve that goal. And I think that by far is the biggest enemy of any type of success, because ultimately my goal is my goal. Nobody is going to achieve it for me. I have to work for it. I have to take care of it. I have to look after it. I have to make compromises and sacrifices for it. Going back to the farmer analogy, right? As a farmer in my own field, my goal, my vision is my seed, and my farm called my life. If I do not plant the seeds that I want, I will not get the results I need. If I plant and do not take care of that seed itself, I do not I do not I do not take care of the farm itself, it's going to be very problematic. The outcome is not going to be nice, no matter how much we can spiritualize it, how much prophecies you can receive. The outcome is simply just not going to change, because that's just the law of nature. Action has some corresponding kind of reaction. You plant a seed, the seed will die on the ground and germinate and bring up a plant that is going to grow from there. So that is at the core of what we need to do. And the last point, and I have to overemphasize this point, is that for us, the absolute worst mistake, I think I can forgive people who commit to a certain goal, write it down, as the scripture says that, write down a vision, for in the appointed time it shall come to pass, it shall not tarry. at least they've taken the first step to identify what they need. And they've written it down. It's something they can follow up on. I can forgive those if they forget to follow up and only open it on the 31st of December. But what is absolutely unforgivable is if you and me today, we hope to, or we admire our neighbors or people we look up to for achieving certain goals, but we do not have a plan in place to be able to achieve those goals. We do not even plan for it. That is even more disastrous than anything.
Sure.
You know, there is again also this one I forgot. I don't know. The author is unknown to me. He says that if you do not build your dream, someone will employ you to build theirs. So ultimately, at some point, what this tells us is that as human beings, our primary occupation is to be working towards achieving a certain goal.
Yeah.
Whether it is our own or somebody else's, we have that primary preoccupation. If we do not chase our own dreams, our own goals, by default, we'll be found chasing somebody else's one. Consciously or unconsciously so, and that's just the nature of how we are, how things work. You see, it's like now, if I have a dream to start to build up a company, very soon I'll find myself working for someone else who is just pursuing his dream by playing in that particular and grow that particular business franchise. So ultimately, the biggest mistake we make is that we generally just want microwave kind of success, more like, the 2 minutes noodles and then you want to eat. So, and life simply just doesn't work that way, because we've got to commit to a cause and work towards it. And what this tells us is that whether we do our own or not, our primary preoccupation as human beings is to be working towards a certain goal. And we have to be pushing as hard as we can, because to push our own before someone now places conditions for us to push his own dream.
Great. No, yeah, look, I wouldn't agree more, because really, I think I liked your fifth point when you say failure to even plan, to even start to even write down those goals. I think that's one of the most catastrophic things that one can bring into their lives. In one sentence or in a few sentences, could you explain to us if it is important, and how important is it for one to share their goals with a team or with their family or close friends, or even go on social media and share their yearly goals and say, look, this is my year, I'm going for the kill, so this is my year of flourishing, or whatever. How important is it for one should one keep their goal a secret, or should one be sharing their goals?
Yeah, no, that's another difficult one. Because if you look at these goals and these visions in their nature, these are personal aspirations, which, given their personal nature, I would say, look, there is no wrong or right answer to that.
I see.
It really depends on the goal itself, the aspect of the goal, and who the vision bearer is actually quite comfortable sharing with. I think what you normally see a lot of times is that We share some of these personal aspirations with an exclusive group or suite of people, be it your spouse, your friends, family, business partners, sponsors, or even go as far as general public and social media, as you indicated, depending on the specific targets that are required. And obviously, I think in terms of whether you are looking at what can go out public, it's very, very critical to also understand the risks that come with everything being out there in public.
Wow.
For instance, if you talk about a financial goal, for instance, right? That precisely exposes your, the financial position that could potentially become a security risk.
Yeah. Very much so.
Security risk not only to yourself, but could be to your, immediate family, your close associates. So it's just balancing out those considerations and looking at who is appropriate to what kind of role can a certain individual play in advancing this particular goal. And this is just personally my personal approach. I look at in the sort of the diversity of people around me. Look at who is critical in achieving this goal and what role do they play. So to the extent that they have a role to play in achieving that particular goal or maintaining that success once we have achieved it, I owe it to them to tell them absolutely everything, and with crystal clarity around what the strategy is, what the challenges are, the setbacks are, and how we ought to be dealing with them from time to time. And that becomes very key. And the reason why this is important is because even the Bible tells us that unless the two of one accord, how can they embark on one journey together? So it's very critical that if I have a fitness goal and I have a fitness coach, I have to be clear to my fitness coach what my goal is so that they can play their part in the best way they can. If I have a financial goal, I have to be very clear to all my financial partners that I work with that this is the goal, so that we can work towards it. But most importantly, to echo your point, it's absolutely crucial not to keep the goal to yourself.
Amazing.
The Bible tells us, the Bible tells us not to pen it down, write it down, put it on the wall so that it's clear. And when it's out there on the wall, everybody can see it. And what is very key and helpful is that when you have that goal that's out of your mind, is written there on paper, somebody else is aware of it. That helps us when it comes to accountability. Because the goal itself, it requires a lot out of us, and with the effort that is required from our side, what is very key is that what we need to realize that there will be a time when things will get really difficult, and I feel like giving up. If we have someone that we are accountable to in relation to those goals, we'll be able to talk to them and get guidance, and even get motivation and encouragement, or even learn from mistakes that they have made. So very, very critical to find and identify appropriate accountability structures for each respective goal that we have in all areas of life, and share those goals with sufficient clarity, and make all those partners and accountability structures a critical part of the journey as we seek to achieve these particular goals and objectives.
Prayer, thank you so much, my brother. This is very insightful. What book can you recommend for us? And by when, by the way, should we have finished reading the book?
Okay, this is my favorite part of it. So, and my best pick for this year given that we're in a pandemic setting, it's a book by Marvin King and Marvin King and John May. It's called Radical Uncertainty.
I've heard of
decisions, making decisions for an unknowable future. And this book is particularly relevant in the context where we are right now, where the future is absolutely uncertain.
Yes.
So it talks about, I don't want to spoil the book for all the readers, but it talks about all the key tools and considerations that one will benefit from if they consider making decisions that are going to secure and impact their future by looking at by marrying the historical perspectives, current circumstances, and conditions of the future that are quite unknown. So it bridges the gap quite nicely for the reader. So it will be one that I would definitely recommend. I would definitely recommend we read. So, and if one can read as quickly as you can help you to set the tone of how you approach the year as things keep changing, and as things keep changing and we experience things that we haven't experienced before. Having read that book would definitely be quite helpful when one thinks of how do I plan my life, how do I get things in order in a situation such as this.
Great.
So that's Radical Uncertainty, making decisions for an unknowable future. It's a great book.
Really like it. We'll most probably get it before the end of the day today and start right away. Thank you so much, Prayer. And so obviously we will drop a link to the book on there, so that at least you can be able to grab your own copy and start reading and enjoying it. Let's now give you a book challenge. So give us a title of a book that you would like to read for the year, or a book that you are currently reading. Any title of a book by any author. Amazing.
It's called Arise by Justice Museneki.
Oh, I see. Yes. That's a good book. I don't want to spoil it too much for you, but it's a very insightful book. Thank you so much, brother. This has been quite an insightful and very informative conversation. Thank you for your time, which is the most valuable resource these days. Second being health, our health. May you stay safe. And remember to always wear a mask wherever you can. And whatever you do, always keep going.